Okay, so in this video we'll be making transitions from room to room like this, and it'll be pretty cool. In the last episode we made it so you could go from room to room. In this one there's actually like a fade in and a fade out. Hello, so this is where we left off. We're gonna add room transitions now. Room transitions. So first what we're gonna wanna do is we're gonna wanna go to sprites and then create a new sprite. We're gonna call this one S transition. And what we're gonna do is we're basically gonna create the fade in. Okay, so as you can see in Undertale, there's a fade in here and here. So we're gonna basically create that. So what we want to do is we're actually going to set the width and height. So right here is where you set the width and height, and then the width is going to be 16, the height's going to be 16. Okay, so what we're going to do is basically make an animation from white to black. So you can see here this is one frame, and if we press plus, that's another frame. So we can, like we did in the first episode, we can animate things, but in this we're just gonna animate a little transition. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna get the rectangle tool and then pick black, and then we're gonna click right here on this black box, double click, and then here we have the alpha. So we want to set this to 45. That basically sets our transparency to that. So what we want to do is we want to get the box tool and then fill this. I guess you can also use the paint bucket. Now we're going to create a new frame, and then on this next frame we're going to click, then click again, and then create another frame. We're going to click again, click again, click again. Yeah, okay. Then we're going to click once, twice, 3 times, and 4 times, and 5 times. There we go. Actually, let's do 6 times. Now we're going to do it 8 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then we're going to do it 10 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Now that is... now we're going to have one more, and then this one's just going to be fully black. There we go. Then that looks pretty smooth. Pretty good fade in. We don't need it to fade back out, because we're just going to have the fade in animation, and we'll reverse that. I'll explain later. So what we're going to do is just call S transition. Our frames per second is going to be 60 this time. Right here. And then we're going to go and create a new object and call it O transition. And now we want to create a create event. Now here, oh wait, first we want to set the sprite. So we're going to go sprites, S transition. Cool. So this one, so for the create event, we are basically just going to go to O warp and go to its create event and just copy what it has. I'll explain why in a second, because basically what we want it to do is once the transition finishes, we want it to take us to that room. So we want to have the same variables because it needs to know what x and y coordinate we want to go to and what room we want to go to. So let's create a new event, and then we're gonna get the draw event. We're gonna use the draw event. So basically what a draw event is it handles what you see on the screen. So most objects already have a draw event. Even if you don't add one, you just can't see it. So like for example, a wall has a draw event secretly, you just can't see it. So the way most sprites handle the draw event is they just have a draw sprite function, and then they have their sprite index, and then their image index, and then their x and y. But what we want to do for this is we actually want to set this to tiled, because what we want this to do is we want this to spread itself across the screen, this sprite, and then fade in and then fade out. So we'll have to use draw sprite tiled for it because it's tiling itself across the screen. And we're going to set this to 0, 0. So basically it tiles from itself from the corner of the screen, the top left corner, to the bottom right corner. And that's it. That's all we need to do here in the draw event. But now we need to create another event, and then we're going to go to other and animation end. So animation end is pretty self-explanatory, where this runs when the animation ends. Oh, the draw event runs every frame, by the way. And the animation end event runs at the end of your animation. So, for example, in the S transition frame, the animation end, the S transition, this frame right here, and the S transition sprite, the animation end would run because this is where the animation ends, right here. So we're gonna go back to O transition, and then in the animation end, you're basically gonna say what we said in a warp. So we're gonna go over to warp, and then what we're gonna do is go to the step event, and then select this and press Control X, or you can right click and press cut, and then we're basically gonna paste it in here. Remember to press Control S whenever you make a new change. Also keep in mind, whenever I add these semicolons, it's because well, in Gamemaker, the semicolons at the end of your text don't really matter, but in most coding languages they do, so it's just a good habit to put semicolons here in case you plan on ever learning a different coding language that does require semicolons. Okay. So we're just gonna put this here. So basically at the end of the animation, we're gonna go to the next room, which makes sense because it's fading in and then takes us to the next room, and then it will fade out. Except how do we fade out? So I'm just gonna put a comment here that says fade out, and then I'm gonna put image speed equals -1. So we've used image speed before in the player, in here, where we set it to 0 to stop playing. And it's pretty similar, except basically, so 1 is your normal speed, 0 is completely stopped, and so -1 is backwards. So basically what we're gonna do is we're gonna fade in, and then it's gonna go backwards, so it's gonna fade out. And so, yeah, that's why we're setting this to -1, so it's gonna fade out. Keep in mind the comments don't mean anything, they're just for explaining what you're doing. You don't have to put them there, it's just helpful. Okay, so we're gonna press Control S, gonna save, and then this looks good, I think. Oh, what we have to do is we have to go to OWarp, and so we're gonna add something new to OWarp because we removed the stuff that was inside of here. So what we're gonna do now is, rather than teleporting us to the next room, we're just gonna create the O transition object, and then just create the fade in, and then it teleports us and then fades out. And the O transition handles all of that, except in the O warp we're just gonna create the transition. And so what we're gonna do is we're gonna create we're gonna create a transition. But in order to do that, we need to do instance, create, depth. And here we're going to put 0, 0. This is the x and y coordinate, so we want it in the top. We want it in the coordinate 0, 0. And then the depth is going to be negative 999. So I haven't explained depth yet. So basically it's where the sprite is shown. So for example, these are two curses, and so with more, so right now you can see that this curse is above this curse. Double click this and then open the creation code. You don't have to do this, I'm just explaining. This curse will actually be above this curse. Actually, no, it's already above this curse. This curse will be below this curse if we press play, because its depth is higher. So the lower the depth, the more in front it is. So see how it's behind? Cool. So basically, the higher the depth, the more behind everything it is. The lower the depth, the more in front of everything it is. And then the higher the depth, the more behind everything it is. So hopefully that makes sense. I'm gonna delete this because we only need this one. And then so basically we want the fade in to be above everything. So I'm gonna set the depth to be negative 9,999, and then we're gonna do a comma, and then O transition. So basically it's gonna create the O transition. Cool. So if we do that now, this should do something. It won't be correct, except I'll explain further. Yeah, see how it fades into the same room? And I'm over here now. The reason why this is because we need to set the variables of O transition to the target X, the target Y, and the target room specified in a warp. So the way we do this is we put var instantiated, that is not how you spell that, instantiated, like that, instantiated, and then, so basically what I just did is I created a local variable. We already went over what variables are, but a local variable is basically means that we can't use this variable in another script. So for example, if I were to call instantiated here, ignore this. It would have a warning because it was only referenced once, but because this is a local variable. So basically this can only be used in the step event. This variable right here can only be used in the step event. And so we're setting this to the instantiated O transition. So we can change its variables however we want. So we can set instantiated dot target X equals target X. So I put a dot there, and so you can get any of the variables, you can get any of the variables from an instantiated object by just putting a dot. So you can get it from any object. It's like you can get its X if you want, except you don't have to. That's not what we're gonna do. We're gonna do target Y, but you can get most values you can get a lot of values from an object by doing that, which is pretty cool. We're gonna set that to target Y actually. Instantiated dot target room equals target room. Okay, cool. That looks pretty good. Now what we're gonna do is, so let's try this, and I'll show you why this is bad. Okay, so this is bad, so I need to fix a few things because technically a transition's still there, so we basically need to destroy it. So let's add an event, and we're going to add the step event. So if you remember, the step event happens every frame, so what we want to check is if our current room, the room that we're in, is the room is equal to the target room, and our image index is less than 1. So basically, what this is checking is if the current room is where we're trying to go, and the image index is less than 1. So the image index, if you remember, is the current frame we're on. So if it's less than 1, then that means we're on the first frame. And so that means that that this is on the first frame. So when it goes backwards and fades out, it will be on the first frame when it finishes. So then we basically just tell it to kill itself. So instance underscore destroy, and then semicolon. Okay. Now we need to go to warp, and we need to add a few stuff to this. So basically, if we didn't add what we're about to add, it would keep creating itself and then end up just crashing the game or just staying completely black or something. So we need to go to sorry. We're gonna check if the transition already exists. So basically we're gonna say and not instance exists transition. Okay, so what does the exclamation point mean? So the exclamation point means not. So I could just write it like this, except it's more proper to write it like that. Basically the exclamation point before this just means not. So basically it's just saying if the player is colliding with a warp and the object, a transition, doesn't exist already, create a transition. So this way it'll only create one of itself and not crash the game. And then also I should teach you something, which is and can also be 2 of this symbol. It means the same thing. I just have been putting and because that's easier. But a lot of coding languages have the and they have this. So I'm gonna keep putting and. Just know that it's more proper to use the and. You can use whatever you want. You can use and or the 2 ands, whatever you want. Okay, anyways. So now we're gonna start the game and see what happens. Okay, so it faded in, except it didn't fade out. And so the reason that is because no transition, we need to set this to persistent. Remember when we set the player to persistent? Basically it means the same thing. So it basically just it keeps the object through rooms, so it can fade out in the second room. So we're gonna go in, and then you can see it fades in and out. And I think that looks pretty good. I think I might make the transition a little slower, and I would do that by just I'm just gonna set this to 45, and maybe that'll be a bit better. Yeah, that's better. Okay, so that's pretty good. And there we go. That's the end. And yeah, so thank you for watching, and see you in the next episode. Please subscribe and like the video, stuff like that. Okay, bye.